So welcome everybody. It's just such an absolute pleasure to see you all. On behalf of the Process Work Institute, I'm delighted to welcome you to Experience Process Work, the Open Forum series, June through August 2022. My name is Helene Gronder and I'm the Executive Director of the Process Work Institute. We help people go deeper into the things that matter. The Open Forum project is being led by three of our Process Work Institute board members, Amy Palatnik, Diane Wong, and Irina Fegina. Our vision is to move towards justice and respect, to co-create a different story using the ideas and tools of process work. This is the second in 6 forums, and we hope you'll come to many of them. I'll drop the registration link in the chat if you're not already signed up, and you can also see recordings of previous forums. So that's actually one piece of housekeeping before I hand over. We are recording the forum for future study and promotional uses. So the recording will be posted on that Open Forum site and available to registered participants. If you wish to avoid being identified, you can turn off your video when you speak, disguise your name in the Zoom profile, or share your thoughts in the chat and a facilitator can read them out. I'll be your main tech host for the event, but there are other people that Diane will introduce shortly. If you have any technical issues, you can direct message me on Zoom and I'll help you out. Also, if you would like to support our Open Forum project, we are fundraising to support more Open Forums in the future and provide free community training for Open Forum facilitators. I'll drop a donate link in the chat later on. Today, our topic is let's talk about race. How do we heal our racial divide? And I'm very excited to introduce you and hand you over to our facilitators, Diane Wong and Amy Palatnik. Diane Wong is a graduate of Harvard Law School. She's a yogi. She's the co-host of Let's Talk About Race, and she's the founder and director of the Racial Justice Collaborative. Amy Palatnik is a process work therapist, coach, facilitator, and board member. She's passionate about organizing and proliferating open forums to engage the global community for group sharing, healing, and transformation. It's my absolute pleasure and honor to hand over to Diane and Amy to take us forward.
Thank you, Helene. And thank you, everyone, for coming today. Happy to see everybody here. So I am Diane Wong, and I want you to see the other members of the Racial Justice Collaborative. I'm the director of the Racial Justice Collaborative. So I want you to say hello and welcome to Catherine Easton Saunders. You'll see her a lot in the chat. She's going to be helping us with the chat. And so if you have any chat questions, you can ask Catherine. And Frank Eason, he's also he's our head of our leadership team on the Racial Justice Collaborative. And he helps us, he does our tech stuff. So he's going to help with that and help Helene with that. So thank you. Welcome, everybody. We're all here and glad to see you. So before we get started with, it's not really before, it's still connected, but we want to take a moment to acknowledge the events of yesterday. Everybody here knows what these events are. These events from yesterday, they add to the shock of the pandemic, to a regular murder on our streets, and to climate change. All of these events are heightening our awareness and bringing us together in search of solutions. Again, I'm Diane Wong, and on behalf of the Racial Justice Collaborative, where I'm director, and the Process Work Institute, where I serve as a member of the board, I welcome you to Healing Our Racial Divide. We're just delighted that you come. We need all the help we can all get from each other. So thank you for spending 2 hours of your Sunday with us. No doubt these are challenging times, but we're here in these times for a reason. And now is the time for individuals and groups to join together as allies, just as the RJC joins together with the Process Work Institute and with each of you joining with us. In these days, we see that our centuries-old white supremacist system is fighting hard to maintain power. White supremacy is trying to push us back into the places that it long ago carved out for us. But we will not go back. The lines are drawn. Sitting on the fence is not an option. It's time to choose. A little bit about the work of the Racial Justice Collaborative. The work of the Racial Justice Collaborative is race. The RJC works to bring, in particular, anti-Blackness out of the recesses and onto the table. Our connection with PWI, the Process Work Institute, is a long one and really rewarding. I've worked with the Mendel's and advocated process works awareness skills for more than 30 years. And why is that? Process work, as you all know, process work has mad awareness skills and deep democracy. These skills are needed today more than ever. These process work skills can guide our world through the tumultuous times in the days, months, and years ahead. The Racial Justice Collaborative brings race to the table and anti-Blackness. RJC joins in collaboration with the Process Work Institute to help to solidify and strengthen both movements and diversify our efforts in meaningful ways. Now, why are we here today? We're going to ask you that question soon, but why are we here? We're here to learn. We're here to learn from you and from each other. In the spirit of deep democracy, today we hold space for you to allow feelings and ideas to emerge and come forward. Let me tell you right now, we don't have the answers. If we did, we would have done it already. But we're going to, today, we're bringing ourselves together with you, and then piece by piece, we're going to figure this out. Today, we ask that you speak up in awareness. We ask that you feel and speak from your heart. If we do this, then together we'll gain the tools we need to help each other grow. In a nutshell, we need each other. Black people need white people to bring change to economic structures and systems. White people need Black people for our awareness, our strength, and resilience. White people need Black people to help us keep our eyes on the prize and guide us through the tumultuous times ahead. As we go through this time together today, ask yourself, why am I here? Please use the chat to write down your thoughts and your feelings as we all speak. And as Amy will talk later, she asked that you bring something to write with, just to note what it is that what are you feeling? What's going on? There's one ground rule. And we're aware that ground rules are frequently framed as be respectful and quiet. And this is the way of whiteness, and the way whiteness seeks to control. We seek to welcome whatever is here, whatever is inside of you that wants to be heard and felt. So we ask that you respect yourself by being honest and true to yourself and your experience, and by being open to other people's experiences. So let me call on Amy. Amy, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name's Amy Palatnik, and I just feel really blessed and honored to be here today. Uh, I never would have imagined that I would have found myself here somehow, and just really grateful for my relationship with Diane and the meetings I've been to, the RJC meetings I've been to have really opened my heart a lot and helped me see a lot of my own blind spots and drawn me in a very beautiful and caring, loving way. So I just want to thank you all who have been holding that space. So I identify as a white woman. I'm Jewish. I'm a process worker. I'm also an artist of many different kinds, and I'm a very sensitive person, and it's not easy for me to facilitate groups or to speak in groups. I just wanted to say that so you know if I'm twitching or something, that's why. But I do feel really passionate about people getting together to process difficult issues, and this is a really difficult issue. The racial divide is feels somehow impossible. Segregation feels so ubiquitous, and it's both inside us and in our communities. And I have a personal strong desire to create more diversified communities and to be a part of more diversified communities. So an open forum is a process work. Well, open forums go probably back to the beginning of humanity, but process work uses open forums as a way to create a safe space to bring out all voices and perspectives. So in every open forum, well, generally in an open forum, the idea is that we open the channels and unleash the parts of ourselves that want to be spoken. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm in a group, I often sometimes will get a funny little feeling inside, maybe a lump in my throat or a pain in my body. And those are always this sign where I can tell something wants to be spoken through me. Something wants to come through. And it's my job to relax my personality and allow that whatever wants to come through to come through. So if you feel that pressure in yourself or that urge or an inclination, we really want to encourage you to follow it and to trust that when those things kind of push through us, they're really for the group. It's like there's like a spirit, like one way that I've heard open forums or group work described is that there's a zeitgeist, there's a wisdom or an awareness that's kind of floating around above the group, and it's like we're the landing pad. The group is like a landing pad, and these awarenesses and thoughts and feelings and dreams want to come through, and so they look for the most open channel. And often I'm that channel because I feel these pressures coming through me to say something. But it's great when we can all find our open channel and open our mouths and let something come out. We really want this to be a very free space today for people to just express. And we can have so much fear of each other and of backlash when we speak. What are people going to think of me? Am I going to say the wrong thing? So hopefully we can create a culture of openness where people feel free to bring forward whatever's wanting to come through them. Let me just take a quick look at my notes. I write all these notes and then I don't look at them. So hold on one sec. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I think I said everything that I wanted to say. So basically today we created a little triad. We thought we were so clever, Diane and I. And we created a little triad that we called feel, deal, and heal. Feel is going to be about really tuning into our bodies and noticing where the disturbances from racism, from white supremacy, maybe for some of us from our ignorance, however we relate, why ever we're here, how does that show up in our bodies. How does that actually affect us when we have a feeling? Because we're all here because of feelings. We wouldn't be here if we were just brains and computer heads. You know, we're here because we care. We want something to change. We have these feelings. And so we're looking today at racism and white supremacy as a symptom of culture. It's a symptom of culture, and symptoms, and each of us is like a microcosm of some aspect of culture. So I have my way of plugging into culture, you all have your ways of plugging in, and the symptoms of our culture, racism as a symptom of our culture, manifests as actually body symptoms. A feeling is a symptom, right? We have a feeling, and if we can identify a symptom, this is where process work comes in with the mad skills part. If we can feel a symptom, we've got a little piece of gold. In process work, any disturbance or symptom is seen as power. We look at it in terms of its power. And if we can find that and feel it and separate just a little bit from our everyday minds, where we tend to make symptoms bad and happiness good, if we can get out of that good and bad and right and wrong thinking, and we can feel the feelings inside our bodies and get curious about these feelings, then we have some information. Then we're holding the power in our hands, and we can find ways to use the essence of that power for ourselves as an ally. I don't know if I'm saying too much too fast, so I just want to slow down and pause and see if there's any questions actually about anything that I've said so far.
Progress.
Did somebody say something? No? Okay.
Oh, Amy.
Oh, yes.
Hi, how's it?
Hi.
You said racism is a symptom of culture. So what is culture, in your view?
I would say what we're exposed to, who we're exposed to, what's around us, people, the world. I don't know how to describe it. Did you have an idea about that, about culture?
No, I'm just curious because since the whole pandemic in corporate spaces, the word culture is just being thrown around, and I'm very curious as to what the word means for everyone.
Yeah, these are important explorations. What does race mean? What is ethnicity? What is culture? Diane, did you want to say something?
You can tell I wanted to say something. Thank you. Is it Alistair? Alistair? Well, thank you. That's an important question. And when Amy said racism is a product of culture, what ran through my mind was, yeah, that's true, but it's the culture of white supremacy. And white supremacy is an intentional infliction on all of us as a system and a way that we're going to go forward. And out of that system is created the culture, which includes racism as just a normal part of the culture. But white supremacy is not a symptom. White supremacy, and see, you hear these are called thoughts. So you all may have other ideas, and just the notion of white supremacy is something we're all coming to grips with these days, understanding that we're bringing it out of the hidden spaces and demonstrating and showing that it's an intentional, it's a decision about how societies would be set up to benefit certain people and take advantage of others. So that's white supremacy. But thank you, Amy.
Shall I continue?
Yeah.
Okay. So feel, deal, and heal is our concept. And so we're going to start off with some slides. And what we're going to try to do uh, is conjure images that bring up feelings, images and thoughts and memories and parts of history that evoke a feeling inside of us, so we can kind of grab and capture that feeling. And that's why I'd like us all to have some kind of paper and pen, so we can either write down the words, but also sometimes feelings have shapes or colors or energies, strengths and powers. So it's going to be a little, at the beginning, we're going to be kind of exercising our awareness to notice feelings and where do they show up in our bodies and what does it actually feel like. This can be very difficult if you've never done it before, or let's say new. So sometimes color is an easy way of getting to that feeling. Like often my symptoms feel red. I get hot, inflamed kind of symptoms. And that can kind of just help us get a little closer to the feeling. Then after we've done this, we'll do this for a little while, maybe, I don't know. We're not super organized about time today, but let's say for 15 or 20 minutes, we're going to be working on kind of feelings, noticing feelings. Where does it live in our body? Can I be present to whatever's happening inside my body? And then the second part of our forum today is going to be speaking from those feelings and bringing out the roles and bringing out the discomfort and seeing if we can communicate from those feelings to bring them out. And that's that part where we just really want to be free and not hold anything in, because what happens when we have pain, and especially people who have recurring pain from white supremacy and racism, is if we don't let it out and don't express it, it can fester inside our bodies and it can turn into actual like symptoms, like disease. And so to grab it while we can and express it and let it out, it's a way of processing it, moving it out, letting it take its natural course. As humans, we tend to be master repressors of feelings, because in the white supremacy culture, we're supposed to be thinking and not feeling so much. That's, I think, part of it. So we really want to invite you to, we'll see how that part goes, to bring in some kind of dialogue about all these feelings, to get them out from living in our bodies to being out in the open where we can more deal with them. That's the deal part. So that's the second part. And then heal, that part's kind of a mystery. I think the healing part of feel, deal, heal is that we kind of hope that feeling and dealing will lead to healing. But at the end, we will work with the essence of the symptom as an elemental energy that can be your ally. So your symptoms might be mostly like metal or earth, stone or wood or fire or water. So for whatever we get to inside our bodies, we're going to be kind of looking for what is the element and how can that element support you as you move forward in your life. I think I've said enough.
That's great. That's great. We're going to move right into these slides. I want to point out that you see the great collaboration that we have. My co-facilitator, Amy, is a process worker. So she brings out process work and how process work works with what skills process work brings. It's really important. Awareness is big. And I I do race, right? So we're going to do some feeling. We're going to feel for sure, but we're also going to think. So if we can start to bring up the slides, and as we bring up the slides, I just want to point out that we all here in this, the facilitators today, we are United States based. And so when I speak of Black people, I'm talking the experiences of being Black, being an African American, and then more widely being Black. It's from the perspective of the United States. But white supremacy is a global, it's not even a phenomenon, it's an intentional global infliction on the whole world. And so other people in other places, like South Africa, that I see on my screen, you have other experiences, and we want to invite you to feel into those, bring those to the table. So I have this up here, and so feel into this. And these are words, but still feel into these. This always struck me because what did this Supreme Court justice say? You know the importance of the Supreme Court. And this justice in 1857 said, the Black man, this is his conclusion, the Black man has no rights, which the white man was bound to respect. And then he went on to say, you know, Black people are of an inferior order and not altogether not fit to associate with the white race. So I say this to say that this is the framework of the United States. This is what we start with. So don't forget that, because remember, the United States has never had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We've never drawn a line in the sand like Germany after World War II and said no more. So we're still afflicted with these. That's why it's in our hearts and minds. We right from the beginning. So let's take it to the next slide, please. Now this, I want to point out that people think of slavery as benefiting planter class. It's the Southern thing, but look at the movement of wealth. So you had slaves picking cotton, working the fields with free labor in the South, but that cotton went to the North and all over the world, but it went to the North for these cotton mills. And these cotton mills allowed for immigrants, all the immigrants after the English, just say the Irish, the Italians, the new immigrants in the country at that time, it provided jobs for them. So I point that out because it's benefiting whiteness. It benefits whiteness all the way around. And Susie says, and to the north of the UK too, where most of the textile industry was based. So thank you, Susie. I hate to leave the UK out of this. They started this. So move on. Next slide, please. Another thing to point out is the slave patrols, because the slave patrols were the predecessor of the modern day police departments. So remember, no Truth and Reconciliation Commission, no line in the sand. So there was a model for police departments, slave patrols. And so that flowed right into modern day. And that's why we have the problem with the police departments today. Next slide, please. Keep that in mind. Let that sink in. Now, why are people always talking this 40 acres and a mule? 40 acres and a mule during toward the end of the Civil War, a general, there was a mandate by the United States government through its military. It said that it was going to provide for these freed slaves 40 acres and a mule. Then we know that President Lincoln was assassinated, and the new president overturned that order. It never got out of Congress. And And so there was no provision for Black people post-Civil War. However, just to point out that planters were provided with reparations. They were paid for their freed slaves. So planters got reparations, just like the French got reparations from Haiti. And it's all around the world, it's the same thing. Whiteness benefits from everybody, especially from Blackness. Next slide, please. So in the United States, the Black soldiers went to war, went to fight for the United States in World War I and then in World War II. But in World War I, they were treated in Europe and other places like human beings. And they came back feeling like, God, maybe we're human beings. We're really part of the human family. But when they came back, they found that they were not looked at as human beings. And so mobs lynched Black veterans. And so that's what happened to the Black veterans after World War I. Next slide. And another thing that happened after World War I, after the slaves were freed, remember that they were not provided with anything. In fact, the 13th Amendment that freed the slaves specifically said that there could be no holding people imprisoned except for punishment for a crime. That was something, that was the hole you could drive a truck through. So that's a whole study. But another thing that happened was Black people somehow went into communities, managed to build up businesses amongst themselves, like Black Wall Street. And there was a huge disagreement with seeing Black people acquiring, building lives for themselves. And so white mobs would frequently just rush into these communities and burn them out, push them out, send them fleeing, and take their property. So remember, we're asking ourselves, why do we have a racial divide? So remember these things. Next slide, please. Here was a frequent occurrence to another white supremacist way of controlling Black people who were feeling like they were human and should be treated like human beings. There was lynching. Thousands of Black people were lynched on into the 20th century. Now, what's really striking and what I want you to feel into about this picture, look at who the crowd is. Children. And they're being taught to like this, to smile and to participate and to feel right about this. So lynching and burning and dismembering Black bodies. That's something to keep in mind. Next slide. The civil rights movement. Eventually, it just got to the place where there was a big movement in the United States to end discrimination, to end brutality, to demand equal rights and equal jobs. We all know about that. Next slide, please. Now, one of the things that the demand for equality, if we look just at what redlining did to communities. So we know that suburbs were developed for white people so that white people could have a piece of the rock, so that white people could become really feeling part of this country. But there was redlining, which means that places where Black people lived were kept out of any kind of that benefit. And through racial covenants and deeds, white people in suburbs soon learned to keep Black people out of suburbs. So when we look at wealth today and we say, where does middle class, we used to have middle class wealth in this country. Where did that middle class wealth come from? Largely from our homes, our suburban homes that our grandparents, our parents bought in the 50s and 60s for $5,000 and $10,000. Now it's worth in Boston millions. But that has never been available for Black people. Black people lived in red line communities. Here's the suburbs on the right and a Black community on the left. New slide, please. Another thing that the civil rights movement was fighting against was education, the right to have education that was a quality education. And in these days, before we had the Civil Rights Act of 1964, before the Brown versus Board of Education, Supreme Court, and even after the Supreme Court made the decision that segregation was unconstitutional, there was just this mobs, and we had to send in the troops to allow one Black girl in Little Rock, Arkansas, to go to school. Look at her. She's a child. Imagine she's your child. Now look at the faces behind her. That's what she faced. That Black parents sent their children to school in those conditions. Remember that. This is why we need to heal this racial divide. It's not healed. Next slide, please. Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. Segregation is unconstitutional. But in the Boston busing crisis of the 70s, 20 years later, and still police have to take Black children on school buses into, quote, white, unquote, schools. And we don't see the mobs, but there were mobs throwing rocks. Next slide. Okay, that's the end of the slideshow. Thank you. We want to take the time to let anybody speak. And then Amy will talk about how we line up and have an opportunity to talk. Amy, do you have anything?
I can say that I had a lot of feelings as I watched those slides. I had a lot of feelings in my body, and before we start talking, I would love to encourage people to just turn inside and notice what they're feeling right now. If any of those images are sticking with you, or those words, what Diane just taught us all and explained, if anything is sitting with you, and how that shows up inside you. What do you experience? I feel like I'd like to give an example, if that would be helpful, or Diane, you could. I'll do it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Especially starting with the picture of the lynching, and then the picture of that white woman screaming in the background post, when after segregation was made illegal. I had a really strong feeling of as though there were a knife going straight down the center of my body, straight down in the very middle. I felt like there was a sharp metal something going straight down. I also had lots of other symptoms. I had a little shaking at some point and some other feelings and a heavy rock in my gut at one point. So I just want to say these things there's different ways that we and then for me, when I work on a body symptom, I choose the one that seems the most curious or interesting or strong. So I had those 3 body symptoms, but the one that I said at first, which was like this feeling of a sharp knife going straight down into my root chakra, into my perineum, that would be the one I would kind of hold on to and work on in myself, because it was the strongest. So, and then if I were to speak about it, I would try to bring that sharpness to my speech. So I want to actually use it instead of feeling like, oh, poor me, there's a knife inside me. I want to say, this knife is coming to me. For me, it's my power trying to return to me. It's not only here to hurt me, it's here to come back as a gift and an empowerment. So that's kind of a lot, and I've been doing this for many years, so I can do that kind of fast. But even if you can catch the littlest bit of something that's happening inside you, you can kind of learn to follow a train into into finding its power. And that's the gift that we hope to leave you with today, somehow, through working on this, through speaking. So yes, Diane, do you want to share what happened for you in your body?
Amy can tell it when I'm ready to talk, right? Well, thank you, Amy. What I notice, what happened, the main thing, the lynching, the main thing I always see, I look at the white people in these, you can look at any images of race, our American racial history, and you're always going to see white people. Look at the white people. I always wonder, what in the world, what do we expect? What do we expect today when we have not worked these things through? We have not processed these things. I look at that young, I think she was 15. She's trying to go to school, and you see Black parents, they would dress their kids up and had to send them out in hostile crowds where with federal troops to take them. And I think about my children, and I think about white children, and I say, what in the world are parents teaching their children? And how have parents stopped teaching their children whatever it was they were teaching them when they took them to lynchings, and when they took them to hate things, and they took them to sit-ins to pour, to be hateful. They're being hateful. How are white families changing that in their lines? It's in our lines. We didn't get here on our own. We have ancestors. Our ancestors taught us. And so I feel tightness. I feel fire. You can hear it. I have burned my wood. Thank God for process work. I have burned so much wood. And so now I can bring the fire as passion for this work. And that's what I bring. I hope everybody here today can bring whatever your symptoms are, whatever you feel, use it, bring it out. That's what I do.
Diane?
Yes, go ahead.
So I just wanted to say that Resmaa Menakem, who some of you know, we talk about intergenerational trauma. Well, he talks about intergenerational brutality in the white line, and I never heard that before, and I always think of that now, and it relates to what you're saying, Diane, that there's this brutality, whether we know it or not, that it's in us as white people. In whatever form it takes now, I believe it's still there. And the other thing I wanted to say with the photos is that as I'm looking at those screaming faces, at the white faces, at the lynchings, I also look at the largely Black civil rights protests, and I look for little white faces. There's very few. And I wonder who those white people are, the very few who were there. And I'm curious about them in that moment, what brought them there as white people and what they're feeling. And I feel, in terms of feeling, I feel constant shame and fury every day, every single day since I was a teenager. And that's how I feel about being white and about white people in general. So.
Jordana, can I ask you, how do you know that you feel shame and fury? Like, how does that show up inside your physical body?
Okay, well, that I don't know, and I have to think about that. I guess it has to do with feeling sweaty and just feeling anxious and tremors, of all the dialogues and race dialogues that I've been in and that I've facilitated. I still get that feeling at the beginning. I feel anxious and angry, and I can't change that or turn it off for good or for bad.
Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I think it's a great exploration. And I also can't change mine, but I think we can use them. So, and that's the gift of them. Yeah, yeah.
And thank you, Jordana, and also Amy, for adding to what Jordana said. And this, even those, even those internalized feelings are a gift. They're pointing you to a gift, and so that's what burning your wood, so that you, and even just to expand it, feel it, feel it, feel it, and then let it flow over you, and then keep doing that until you're free, and then you can gather up that power and then use it, which you both do already. But that's what process work brings. Awareness.
So just to stay on this for one moment longer, Jordana, if you could draw some of that, the tremors or the sweating or the anger, that would be a way to start getting into what we call the dreaming of it, instead of just like calling it anger, calling it shaking, which is something that we can all relate to. If we can start to kind of get out of our rational everyday minds and explore it with the symptoms themselves with curiosity, that's kind of what helps lead us to these potential powers that are underneath. So I encourage you to pick one of them and draw it. And then we kind of gently amplify it too. Here's something else I want to say about this work, is that it's good to have your hand on the volume knob of your symptoms or of your feelings. So we want to be in control. Oh, I'm curious about it. I'm going to turn up the volume a little bit so I could feel a little bit more. I'm going to make the symptom a little bit stronger so I can get a little more into it. Or I'm actually not ready to do that right now. I'm turning the volume knob down. I don't feel like showing my feelings in this big group. I'm going to turn the volume knob down. So feel like you're in control of how much you experience, and how far you want to take it.
Thank you, Amy. Amy just showed us how to control when we want to control our feelings. I'm going to encourage you to let those damn feelings flow. The sooner you can get yourself, let your feelings just take over, the more awareness you're going to have and the more powerful you become. We need all of your power. White supremacy says, stop that, be quiet. But process work says, explode, explore, and not just for the sake of that, but because it brings healing to you and your body. Those symptoms are gifts. So Amy, can you explain how we are going to go to the reactions button, and so we can open this up?
Yeah, well, I think I've already seen some people starting to share in the chat, and I think just bringing this out, having people explore what's going on for them inside their bodies, and just doing your best to try to talk about it, or if you drew a picture, you can show us the picture that you drew. I'd love to just kind of start working this muscle of, how do I really get in touch with these feelings? How do I explore these feelings more deeply? How can I gently amplify them so I have a little bit more of a sense of what is the symptom in my body? How does this live inside my body? So the more that people can bring in their examples, the juicier it'll be, and we can work individually with people or
we've got some people. There's a lot of examples that we're getting in the chat. So, and I love the chat. So I am hopeful that Sundiata, for example, and Lily are bringing up examples that they, how they handle these feelings and emotions. And Sundiata, if I don't see you, but if you can speak, you say in your comment, where did the comment? It popped, now it moved. But, you said that there must be some shame and responsibility of us all in different forms. And how does that, Sundiata, how do you feel that? Where does that come from, what you just said?
Well, I was listening to what Jordana was talking about, and I was, I was impressed with the way Jordana expresses how she sees things. She gives me a little bit of encouragement that people are out there who are looking at this thing and saying, this is not only wrong, but I'm embarrassed about it. There's some shame to it because it represents something that I am part of. So what I said was the shame and the responsibility, and it's for all of us because each person on this line comes from a group who's done something to somebody. So, and I'm not trying to slip by white supremacy and the negative effects that it's doing to us, because my feeling with all of these is cortisol. Cortisol runs through my veins all the time when I think about this racism thing. And I know that cortisol will kill you if you have too much of it. So people who are constantly being attacked and, and hated and all that kind of stuff, and especially those of us who care about the hate, which I don't. You know what I mean? I just care about you putting your hands on me and locking me up. But many of us care about being part of society and being accepted and wanting other people to like us and all of that. And so for those people, as well as people like me who could care less with a white supremacist thinks, we still are feeling these physical expressions of this. And whether we deal with it or not, it's making our life shorter. So that's how I feel about it.
That's
so I'm
great.
trying to figure out how to get to a better place.
That's great. So what you just said is that you feel, so you did a distinction between your thinking and your feeling, because you feel the effect. It's still coming into your body and causing effects. You said it's cortisol and it will kill you, but your thoughts, you're able to, you feel like you cut your thoughts. Your thoughts say, I don't care, but your body says, you're going to die because you're going to absorb all of this hate. Is that?
Yes, my body is saying that if I don't learn how to deal with this, you know, all of us, if we don't learn how to deal with this, it'll kill us without there being a white supremacy with a gun saying, here's your reparations. And then nobody will be able to say it's their fault. But it's like you're talking about a whole group of people who have intergenerational trauma, which starts when we get here. Did you know, and I think I said it in another meeting, that your average, they say, your average Jewish woman carries generational trauma all the way from the Holocaust. And that the ones who are alive today have a certain amount of this trauma in their body, whether they know it or not, just passed down, you know, genetically. So if that's the case, and they're the second most traumatized people in the world, that's deep. So, because they're not in the same situation as us. So you take that and then you look at what's happened to us and what's still happening to us. The trauma is unimaginable. So anytime you see one of us who is sane, you're looking at a work of art. It's because of the God in us. If you was to see us out here stark, raving lunatic and trying to kill you, that would really be the more logical of what would happen to people who are underneath these particular circumstances for the majority of their lives. So thank God that we're a peaceful people.
Yes. Thank God. Thank God.
Sundiata, can I ask you a question? Can I ask you,
Sure.
what does it actually feel like? Could you describe to all of us what cortisol running through your body actually feels like? What's that experience?
Well, most of you know it. If you've ever been at a scary movie and you got scared, or somebody threatened you so they were going to kick your ass or something like that, that's when these feelings kick in. A dog jumps out of nowhere, your kid sneaks up behind you, boo, and you're like, hey, look, don't do that to me. You know, it's a fight or flight thing. It's something that your body kicks in when you need it. And if your body's in a constant state of arousal, like fight or flight, it's not a help anymore. It's just a cortisol feeling is a helper when you need it. But if you have it all the time, it's poison. So we don't necessarily feel like, oh, I'm being poisoned. But all the time we're on edge, even the most calm of us, like Frank. Frank is one of the calmest dudes I know. But if you get into some of this kind of stuff, even he'll spaz on you. You know what I mean? Because it's really deep. So I don't know. That's all I can really say.
We have a lot of thank you, Sundiata, always. Thank you for being willing to share your real feelings. Catherine?
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back to a couple of the comments on, I forget exactly who said it, maybe it was you, Diane, about how this, you know, like Sundiata said, fight or flight can be a gift that you can use. And there were a few people who wanted to know, how do you use this as a gift? Like, what are some examples of what that looks like or how that looks?
Right. Thank you, Catherine. Alistair, I saw that in the chat that you asked that. So Alistair, can you come and speak to that? What's going on in your feelings and thoughts when you hear that? How do you feel about the symptoms or the issues or whatever we see as problems? What's going on around you? Why do you ask that question? Is what I want to know. Where are you? I don't see you. Can you speak on that?
I'm here. Well, to answer your question as to why I'm asking is because those feelings, I think like Amy said in the beginning, you know, we are experts at repressing them. And that means, like, you know, if you're in your 30s, you probably have been repressing them for a very long time. So then it means they're not good for you, right? That's my first thought. Well, that's what your brain's telling you, that these feelings are not good for you. So let's repress them. So now if I'm gonna facilitate like a workshop or do a one-on-one session with a client, and I invite them to open up those wounds, what benefit is there for them? You know, if the feeling is rage, I don't even know if rage is a feeling or a symptom of a feeling. But if you're feeling rage after seeing certain images, how can we turn that into a gift or something positive? That's the stuff I'm looking for.
Okay, thank you. Anybody can speak, but I have some experience with this. That's why I'm here today speaking and passionately, because I use the gift of the anger that it's all just energy. It's all just energy, whether it's anger or rage or love, or I mean, it all is this energy that if we could see it, it's just energy. and we are torn and pulled in one direction or another direction. But if we can process it long enough, and we were speaking of symptoms and body symptoms. And so my experience going back 30 years, when I had serious asthma, and so you look at asthma and you say, okay, where did that come from? Emotion, like it's this tightness maybe in your chest. I used to feel it. So I used to have asthma. I worked with Arnie and I did a lot of burning my wood. And so you're still there. I'm going to keep talking. We did a lot of burning your wood. And so the result of that means that I am no longer triggered in the same way. I used to be really triggered by any perception of any racist anything, and I would be triggered. And what I mean by triggered is I would be uncontrolled. I would be uncontrollable and just hit out, strike out, scream out, whatever I did. But by processing that, and what does that mean? That means do it, go over your edges. But this is a long time process. I don't suffer from asthma after all those years anymore. I have the power that came from that I used to just spew out here and there because there was always somebody that was doing something that I felt, like I was being racially disrespected. Now, this disrespect is big. I was disrespected. So, but I was triggered. But now I am no longer triggered. Now, and so what does that mean? That means that people can say things, do things that used to trigger me. They don't trigger me anymore, but I have the power. I gather the power and I use it. I use it to speak. I'm using it now. I use it to speak. I use it to make whatever point. I use it to do my work in the world. I use the power instead of this power turning me here and turning me there and pushing me around. I'm no longer triggered. I choose to say something. So that's how we use it. It's just energy. You use it. If you're not pulled this way and that, you can use it to do this and that. Does that make sense? Okay.
Well, I think that we have kind of two trains of thought here, where you're talking about burning your wood, and from what I understand, it means to just light it all on fire and just process it all and get through it so that you can get to this point where you can use it. And then we have Amy, and she's talking about using a dial. And I think I'm probably more in that category where I may be calm, but I do a whole lot of repressing, and I know I do. And you get to that point where you will just explode, and then, like Alistair was saying, is that any good? I don't know. It makes me feel good afterwards, and then you have to apologize and say, well, hey, you just caught it on the end. You triggered it. You were the straw that broke the camel's back, and I let you have it. I really apologize. So if you're not in a setting where you're trying to burn that wood, it may come out wrong. So I think that is very important. But I think for me on a daily thing, it's, you always have to be aware of how you're feeling and not let it get to that point. And you do, I never thought about that, Amy, but I do try and use that dial where I know that there's something there. I don't really want to do it. I'm not gonna lie, I don't want to do it, but I'll turn it up a little bit and what is this about? And I'll turn it back down, but no, I'll repress that for a little while, come back to it later. But you have to get to it, whether I'm just gonna blow it all up or I'm gonna turn it up slowly until I can deal with it. But that, like we've been talking about these gifts, and however you get to that point, I think that's your gift, where I've done it all. I processed, and I can use that now, and I can use that rage or that energy in one way, or I've turned it up enough to where I understand and it doesn't affect me like it used to, but I can still use it. And so if I want to feel something, I'll turn it up, and it, you know, Sunday I don't get this, like Bane, you know, you turn it up just a little bit to get yourself amped up, and you're like, okay, that's good. And you turn it back down. But those are the things that I think that we can use so that you just feel nothing. And I think that's one of the problems that we have, is we don't feel. And it's always this higher thinking. We're going to process and be very polite and respectful in how we interact with one another, but there is no feeling in what we do. And so we just kind of become numb in some ways, or we just talk about it in this space that is not like these are our lives, you know, and that the things that we're talking about directly affect me. And then you just kind of put it in this space that it's just higher education, theoretical theories, but really, I mean, this is everyone's life that we're talking about. So we need to pull that feeling into it, because that's, I believe, where things change. If it's all just talk, but no feeling, then you don't get to put yourself in somebody's place and really get a sense of what's going on. And it's just reading a book. You know, if that doesn't make you feel some kind of way, then you won't get to that point where you can be an effective ally for whatever it is that you're trying to do. That's what I think.
Thank you, Frank. And Frank points out that living in society, if you go around blowing up and burning your wood and just blowing your wood all over, then there are consequences to that. And so I'm going to agree that there are consequences, and so it all. So what Amy is suggesting, it's awareness. So once you start to bring your awareness in and you see what you're doing, and then you're learning, you can turn it up, you can turn it down, then do that until you can get to a place where you feel safe enough to burn your wood. But I want to point out that as long as we're keeping these things repressed, these emotions and feelings repressed, it's eating away inside our body. And so it may take years, but then one day this organ doesn't work, and that you can't breathe anymore because you have just repressed it. It may feel like you did it because you needed to do that repression to go along to get along. And you kill yourself. So, but if you don't hold back and you do put yourself out there, you're going to have a lot of times when you're going to run into problems in society. That's not going to be welcome. So those are choices that we make. I see Lily. I would really like Lily to come in because I see her helping people in the chat. And I see Susie has her hand raised and Amy wants to talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to just say something just very briefly, which is to plant the seed of what if these symptoms were not actually against us, but for us? What if the energy of the symptom was our own power disavowed and projected into the outside world? Maybe that's a stretch, but coming back for us. So something like rage could be the power of fire coming back and wanting to really live in our bodies instead of, like we're talking about, compressing it and compartmentalizing it and shoving it into a little part of us. What if it really wanted to be our spirit? Like, I am a fire being. So there's a part of me that's just a fiery woman or fiery person or fiery goddess or something, that's just really wanting to live through me. So we repress it and make it small because we're afraid of it. But what if it's actually our superpower? And it's like a pretty big edge. It's a pretty big leap to take, but just to start entertaining it, that if we can get to the essence. When Sundiata was talking about cortisol, I was imagining the energy of electricity. I don't know if that's how he experiences it or how people experience it, but I was thinking, wow, that's like a electrical, like if you could think in terms of like cartoons or comics, and that there's like an electrical, being. Somehow that helps me to feel like I have some kind of like a little spirit ally that's elemental. So I just wanted to plant that. I really appreciate the dialogue around this. I'm really learning a lot from you all.
Susie has her hand raised. I'd like to invite Susie to speak.
Hi everyone. Whoa, so many things are going on in me because I'm training to be a process worker at the moment, and I've got half my head is in like process work land, and the other half of my head is in like anti-racist activism land, and then the other half of my body is just going, oh, I'm here feeling all these feelings, and whew, so that's a lot of stuff. And but there's a couple of things I want to name or frame because, and I'm also just really curious about what everyone is sitting with as well right now, because we've been talking so much and people are putting in the chat that they're feeling things, and it feels like, I don't know, there's something about bringing them out more into the space there's something around that I just want to name, like maybe some of us need a bit more support, or maybe we feel a bit shy, or maybe it's just not very safe to bring these things in. Because that's something I wanted to name, is the position. There's something about a positionality, about who can bring their feelings in and who can't. And it might be easier for white people, or it might be harder, or I don't know. I just want to frame something about positionality. And then another positionality that comes is how white supremacy suppresses feelings, but for different reasons. So for me as a white person, suppressing my feelings around racism and around white supremacy is to keep the system of advantage that I have as a white person, like, is keeping it there. And that really came to me when I saw the image of the Black person being lynched, and how the white people, the white children, are just sort of there, like completely blank, and being encouraged to just observe this blankly, and like how this is a horrific thing going on. And the positionality of a white person is, you have to suppress your feelings so that you maintain the system and disconnect because it's to our advantage or my advantage. And then I'm hearing that there's another thing that's needed to suppress feelings. I'm hearing various Black people. I heard Sundiata was sharing about suppressing feelings, or maybe it wasn't Sundiata, I can't remember now, but feelings need to be suppressed because it's actually not safe to express them in the world. So there's something around a positionality there. And then I want to name a systemic thing. I'm just going to talk for a little bit longer about who is doing the work, and that it might be a bit much to do some of the work. And so there's like a systemic, I'm not sure I'm being very clear, but I'm also feeling a lot. And also, like, in this, if we think of the system of white supremacy, and we think as process workers systemically, then who is carrying the marginalized piece? Like, who has got the power to project things into marginalized parts? And I see, Diane, I think you're thinking a lot. I hope you're going to come in and save me. Actually, that's awful. That's awful too.
Can I say something?
Yes, please, because I feel like I'm grappling with something that I'm not quite managing to say. But yes, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Catherine, for supporting me. I there's so many feelings. I mean, feelings are completely here. I think in terms of the process work piece, it's a jump for people to figure out how to actually use those skills to bring those body feelings back into our work, let's say, whoever we are. And I just wanted to, I've also done process work for a while, and I just wanted to give one example because it seems that, you know, to do that, it takes a little space and a little time and focus on the body. But I just wanted to, for a moment, bring it back to the body. And if I may, just for a moment, to give an example, I'll do it pretty quickly. When Sundiata, you talked about cortisols, I also have cortisol problems from exhausted adrenals of like, that's what happens, right? When they run and run and run. And one example of that in my body is that there's a rushing. For a long time, I had that, the cortisols like get going and they don't stop, as you say. And for me, that body symptom was a rushing in me. And I just want to share for a moment that rushing, and then put that in a movement. For me, that's the way it works out the best. Like draw it, but I'm going to just move it like this. And because this is what it felt like inside me, and the sound, and I don't even need to make that much bigger because it just took me over again. But turning that into something useful is a challenge, another challenge. And for me, if I imagine into that energy, I get something like Diane was saying about the passion that comes out for your work, Diane, which is really clear. You have an amazing ability there to vision and keep going and inspire. You inspire. So I think for me, it comes in the face, in the way, not the face, but it comes out in the ability to keep going. That I can use that energy to keep going when I want to stop, because, you know, this work, as anyone knows who does it, is a lifetime challenge, doesn't let up. You can take on as much as you can handle. And sometimes you want to say like, oh my God, I can't do it anymore. So that's one way I can use that energy for the work. I just wanted to give that little example because we each have our own experiences, and how to use them is so unique to each of us.
Right.
And you need a little space and time and focus there, as you were saying, Diane, the awareness, bringing in the awareness there. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Rhea. There's no quick fix.
No.
Peter, before you share something, you have a lot of things you're talking about in the chat. Can you just bring that in to the?
Thanks. I will, and it was unintentional that I hit that button. Catherine, thanks for taking care of me. Everybody, thanks for being here. I'm just gonna weep. I grew up in Detroit, and my loved ones, by and large, were Black. And my sisters had adopted a number of Black children, and they're my nieces and great nieces. And today, thanks to you all and this process, like I just stopped my pattern of going to brain and let it come. And thanks, it's great pain. And for those of you who experience discrimination because of your skin tone, thanks for being here with me, being of me, letting me be of you. It's beautiful pain. And, you know, I've spent my whole life being a civil rights activist, channeling this hurt in my way, right? And now I'm trying to learn to be a process worker too, and to do it less from here and more from everywhere. And there's a beautiful day in my life. And I hope I get to talk with you all some more. And Diane, thanks. I met you in the past, and thanks for sticking with it all this time. You're a hero to me. That's it.
Thank you, Peter. I want to ask Peter, remember, because you've been here the whole time. I've been looking at you the whole time, so I know you're here and present and you're commenting. So you heard, and you're talking about, I'm going to hazard a guess and say that you're white. Do you consider yourself white?
Yeah.
It's hard, you know. I mean, we have to let people self-identify. So, so Peter, remember Jordana in the beginning. I think she was the first participant that spoke, and she talked about whiteness and how it feels for her, and what she can do with her whiteness. And so you have Black family members, and so you can see those Black family members. But how are you, as a white man, what are you bringing, and how are you bringing it? What is this whiteness to you?
Thanks. I'm a Gemini, and I'm also like split on this in two ways, right? I got every immutable characteristic of the racist, privileged oppressor. And yet all of my parents' parents were immigrants who were fodder for the machine, just like the African people who got torn from their cultures. Ours were coerced or seduced, my kin, into being fodder for the machinery. They were all laborers in the steel mills and the automobile industry. And so I both feel affinity and of the class of people who have been treated as tools for the wealthy to enrich themselves, and also guilty that I have all the immutable traits of those oppressors who did that, even though they were doing it to my grandparents, right? So I'm both in and out, oppressor and victim, in my roots and in my genetics and in my heart. So I'm split. When I was a boy in Detroit, it was said to me by a teacher, "Do you even realize you don't like white people?" And it was a big aha moment. I didn't, but I see it still, that it's a paradox, that I judge me for being my skin tone and of the class that I was born to. But at the same time, I've spent my whole life burning out my organs through cortisol and adrenaline, trying to sue every fucker in sight for all of their civil rights violations. And so now I'm trying to be a calmer, loving, process work-oriented activist for whatever time I have left.
That was wonderful, Peter. So so we're seeing examples of different ways of being real, of being aware of who we are as, and our strengths, and the repressive nature. I'm hearing a lot about repression. I want to ask, thank you, Peter. I want to ask white people, what can we do? You saw those pictures, and Lily is talking a lot about different things that were going on with the white kids, the girls and the boys, looking at a lynched person. And that hasn't been healed in those children, and they passed it down. They learned apparently to be quiet or to repress or I mean, we still do this stuff. We're still doing it. We're such an anti-Black society. So what do we do? How can we finally decide to bring it out so we can change? How do we bring it out? How do we help heal those white kids that are still coming up and still learning this stuff passed down generation after generation? And they're the Proud
Diane?
Boys. They're all kind of, oh, yes, I hear you. Go ahead.
It's Jordana. Before we get to that, I just want to address something Peter said that doesn't sit well with me, and maybe I'm misunderstanding it. I can't listen to any white people, even Jews, or even POC who are immigrants, compare their decision to immigrate to the US under whatever circumstances to what happened to enslaved people. I can't accept that. If I understood it correctly, I can't accept anybody putting those together in any way. And so I don't know, Peter, if I misunderstood you or maybe you could explain that a bit more, how you see a connection to even the poorest white presenting or even other immigrants choosing to come to the US, even under duress, even fleeing pogroms. My ancestors were Jews who left Russia and what's now Ukraine. And maybe as Sundiata said, Jewish women are carrying stuff in their bodies still from not even the Holocaust, but the late 1800s. And so forth. But Peter, I just wanted to know if I misunderstood what you said. And if I didn't, I just want to hear more about that. Thank you.
No, you deserve to hold me accountable for the way I said that. And like I said, that's my half. My half empathizes, at least imagines that I empathize with all peoples of all ilks who have been exploited and controlled and used as machinery by the privileged. And that's my truth from that half of me. And the other half of me looks at the fact that only a white guy deserves to be called out for saying that shit, because there is nothing that can compare to the travesty of being kidnapped and forced into slavery. And so I just am not going to buck back. That half of me is wrong to say it, and that half of me feels it.
Appreciate that greatly.
We've got some hands up. Sundiata?
I just wanted to piggyback off what Jordana was talking right there, because clarity, understanding, that leads to understanding, and that's going to move us forward. I appreciate that, Jordana, and I also appreciate Peter seeing what she was saying. It's something that it just kind of triggered me into something else that's kind of connected, but it's like this is something that happens throughout history, and it's still happening. It's like whenever we talk about specifically the problem of darker complected people in this country, they get lumped in with other people's problems. And people don't necessarily do it maliciously. Some people do. I think it's very strange that Gay Pride Month happens to fall the same time as Juneteenth. I felt some type of way about that. Now, Juneteenth, I'm falling on, well, I won't get all into all that. Anyway, moving on. I'm just saying that I think that nobody's really trying to compare who has suffered the most. What it is when we're talking about our suffering, we don't want to, it's not humane to look at other people's strife and problems, even though they're human, but there's a specific and unique taste to what happened to us here. And my take is not even the kidnapping, because the kidnapping probably only had happened to about 10 to 15% of the people that we're talking about. These are Native Americans we're talking about. So we're talking about land theft and bonking somebody in the head and making them forget who they are. That's who we are. So, it's just, I don't know, I don't feel like we need to have all focus on us at all times. Everyone has troubles, and there are forums for each one of those. And I think as a universal feeling, we can all feel for other people who have taken or become the fodder, like Peter said. What I found out, and I'll say this and be done, we are so much as fodder or chattel or goyim or whatever word that it is that is being used, that even when I found this recently, that when our soldiers who look like me, when they go over and they get killed, when their death is not even classified under human terms, it's classified under property terms. Even today, challenge me, look it up. But it's like there are property terms that are applied to wards of the state. Ward is another name for slave. And a ward of the state is what many people are, even when they don't look like this. And that's the real deal. People who look like the people who think that they're white are also wards of the state, also under those same classifications and fall under the same things as we do. It's just they don't realize it. They think that they're at the top of the thing, but don't pay your taxes on your house and see if they won't snatch it from you. It's the same thing. It goes deeper, but I'm gonna be quiet.
Thank you, Sundiata. The time is moving on. I want to make sure that we said in the beginning, I think, or at least it was written, that we would hope that everybody speaks at least once. So there are a lot of people, and there's a lot of discussion in the chat, and there was somebody else who had their hand up. So I'm going to invite people now that haven't had an opportunity to speak. And this is about as safe place as you're ever going to find. We're really, all these Black people here, we're all supporting all the white people here. The white people support, we're safe. So come forward, say what's on your heart and on your mind. Remember the slideshow, I want to hear about that. Let's talk about race.
And speaking from your body, from wherever you're affected, if you can open up your mouth and just speak from whatever's that's part of yourself. I saw Brooking's hand up before and Deborah's.
Yeah, I can speak. I was reflecting on Diane's question for white people about what we can do. And I actually feel like one of the most powerful things we can do is help other white people learn to feel because the guilt, shame, and numbness and silence are all like depressive feelings that contribute to inaction. And so even like in the early phase of the journey where you look at an image like that, which many people have never done, and it's just like, can I actually feel that? And so the other thing that kind of lights the fire in me about that is the recognition at a body level that this is liberatory work for everybody. The sources of pain and trauma are very different, and I'm drawing a little bit on Reason Menakem's writing when I'm speaking to this, but to get access to your own soul again and your own ability to like find relationship with earth and other humans from a healthy, non-extractive way is liberating, no matter what your skin color. And there's all sorts of places in the conversation where we don't want to forget skin color and the impacts and the different privileges, obviously, but I just feel like that's such a beautiful invitation for white people. And it's really scary because there's a lot of pain to feel in our own traumas and lineage of numbness and of standing by, or even taking pleasure in violence and oppression and trauma and working through that. As I think if we can't take that step, then it's all going to be a lie that lives up here. So thank you.
Wow, Brooking, thank you. Thank you.
Deborah, white as I am. And this is, I am just, I feel like I'm buried in concrete almost. I'm new to process works. I have difficulty following, listening to you, looking at the chat. I feel like, well, I'm coming out of concrete, I guess. I'm overwhelmed with sadness, grief in the feelings in my chest, just throughout my whole body. I don't know where to go from here. I'm one of those white children in the picture of the suburban neighborhood. I grew up in a very white supremacist sort of attitude. I live in one now. I'm surrounded with white people. I don't have a community connection of Black or any other, well, we talked about culture a little bit anyway, any other community other than this. So I have continued to repress myself and not reached out. And I'm so appalled now. It's what's happened since the violence has really grown to my attention recently in this country. Is where do I start? What do I do? How do I get out of this space that I'm in and move out into the world to do some good and to well, that's it. What do I do with all this? And I know I'm listening to you, and it's been very helpful to take me that direction. And my hand was an accident. I just looked up and I thought, how'd that little hand get up there? But maybe it wasn't an accident after all.
I just want to encourage you, Deborah, because that image of concrete is so strong that instead of being trapped inside concrete, which I really relate with that feeling of that whiteness just kind of being behind a wall, that you can maybe feel the power, the strength of that concrete. That is a really strong power. If you could feel it in your whole body and take it as your some kind of superpower as you move forward. Who knows how it'll manifest, but instead of it being something that traps you, if you had that strength, it's like an earth energy. It's a rock energy, the strength of a rock. Just to start dreaming about that as you work on racism in yourself, as you encounter it in your life.
I also thank you, but I also have a brief comment when you have talked about dreams. I had a fairly recent dream of being strangled, somebody approaching me from the back, reaching around my neck, strangling me, you know. I knew I was going to be killed. And all of a sudden I said, who are you and what do you want from me? And the voice just started laughing and said, I'm not here to kill you. I'm just here to get your attention. And I thought, okay. And then flitted off, you know, the figure flitted off. And so here I am.
It's good to ask the question, huh?
That's great. And Deborah, that's, and look at your, so there's something that's saying, Deborah, get involved, open up your eyes, and you're doing process work. I mean, this is perfect. I want to make sure we give Zed a chance to speak, and then Susie.
Good. I suppose it's good morning there. It's good evening here. But hi, everyone. So as I was watching the slideshow at the beginning, I think I was just struck by the similarities between your history and our history. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but there's so many similarities. And just reflecting on the Black soldiers who went to the World War and they came back and they were not given any benefits, to the segregation laws, to our president in 1948 saying there is no use for a Black person to be given education because all they're going to be is draw wood and draw water and chop wood, the segregation laws. It was just so, you know, I mean, it's something I know, but I think it just came across very much the similarities between you and us. We're a few decades behind you, but I think there are so many similarities. And when Dan spoke about the TRC at the beginning, I was just thinking, you know, the TRC in South Africa was such an amazing process on one hand, and I think there are a lot of people who got a lot of healing from that, including myself. But it was so specific in terms of who could qualify to go to the TRC. So it was a certain period of time, but it was also people who had suffered gross human rights violations, which the majority of South Africans hadn't suffered. So even though that process happened and a lot of learning and healing and understanding happened, to a lot of us who suffered just kind of like the everyday violence of racism, we haven't had our TRC. We haven't had a space to have these conversations. Now, of course, you know, a number of people are trying to do it in different ways, in small pieces, including myself. And that was my final project when I was doing my MACF. Yeah, so just those similarities. But I think that what I'm very in touch with is that I lived in the United States between 1989 and 1995. I came back to South Africa in 95. And then I came back, I used to come back and, you know, to the US when I was doing my MACF. And then in 2019 was the last time I'd been to the US. And then I've just come back from the US, but I cannot say how afraid I was to come to the US in ways that I'd never been all the time that I'd been to the US. It was palpable, it was real, it was kind of every day, and it was really scary. So in 2011, my son went on a gap year, and I wasn't as afraid then. I was kind of concerned. And then my younger son then went in 2018. I remember being so scared for him as a Black boy in the US. I was happy when he was in the camp, the summer camp, but once he started traveling, I demanded that he call me every day so I know he's alive. I had never felt that personally. I didn't feel it in 2019, but yeah, I was there at the beginning of June, but I was so terrified. Buffalo had just happened, Uvalde had just happened. So I just have this strong sense of just despair and hopelessness and fear. And I look at my kids, they all happen to be in their house at this moment for different reasons. And I just look at them and I'm very despairing of what world we are bequeathing them. So that's just where I am. When I was in the US, I read a poem that I wrote about how the US had inspired us, particularly the African Americans. And it was so real for me. Like when we were in our deepest, darkest places, we could read W.B. Du Bois, we could, you know, read bell hooks, we could sing, you know, Nina Simone's song. It was so inspiring, and I think it gave us hope. And I look at the US now and I think, shit, we're in trouble. So I have a strong sense of despair, and why I came here was for searching for hope and motivation and meaning somehow, because this is work I've chosen to do, to keep going. Yeah, so that's where I am. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. Let's just sit with that for a minute. She said, thank you, Zed. She said so many things. That I'm happy that you spoke of the similarity, that it's the brutality, it's the hatred. There's something about this hatred, and it makes me worry. I mean, hatred, there's hatred all around, but white people have it in spades. And so there's something, even if you're only living in white communities, maybe you have to saturate yourself in your own stuff and help your people work themselves through it. It's not, no, I was going to say it's not Black people, but that's not true. I believe that Black people in this day are here to help white people recover their soul.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so Lily,
Mm-hmm.
I see you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize my mic was open.
Please.
There's a part of me that says, that's on us too. No, that can't be on us too, right? When I'm in my despairing moments. And of course, there are times when I can see it, but.
I agree with you, Zed. I don't think, there's something you need to do. I hear what Diane is saying in terms of that my own motivation from Diane, from relating with her, with you, with everyone here, then what do I do in my community? I think that's what, and I totally agree with what you're saying, Diane. I think the work needs to be done. That's why I mentioned about the kids. I think it's up to us, white people, to really understand what has happened, to see what is blocking and what is creating all this, that what appears now as violence and hatred, and try to start to do something about it, So in that larger sense, I think, Diane, I hear what Diane is saying in terms of regaining our soul, because doing this work, you'll gain access again to your humanity.
And absolutely, so that's the work I do. Like I do D&I work, and I work with white people, so that I get that at one level. But I think when I'm in this place of just such deep despair, it does feel like too much.
I feel that despair too, Zed. Every time I open the radio and I hear the news, or I go out, or I see what's happening, it's like a constant feeling that I have all the time. And then my way of working it is really just going into it, going deeply into it, and till eventually it gets me to a little detached state. And from there, I don't know, I find a hope again to come back in. But it's constant. It's constant. I feel like that for our world, for, and with the feeling insignificant, feeling too small to make a difference, all that stuff.
Thank you, Lily. Naming the challenge that we're all facing. I want to also go back to something that Zed said, and especially here in this, we're process workers and people studying process work. She said that a lot of people are not having the opportunity to come to spaces where they can explore this, hear any kind of encouraging something. And so that puts those of us who are here with a responsibility. We're here for a reason. We're here for a reason. The people need help. People need help. If you're in white communities, you are there because you have to help your white people. Don't be afraid of being white. Look at, I'm white. Just, I'm not, but you know, if I were, I'd say I'm white. And so I would not allow my school systems to stop us from showing the history of white people. Don't let that happen. They're trying to make it so that we can't. How do we help young kids if we can't look at the history and say, we're not going to go there, we're not going to do that? One good thing I see out of Germany after World War II, they changed the education of their children. We are fighting tooth and nail to not bring that awareness to our, and it's to the white children. That's who's not going to learn. Black kids know this. That's a disservice to the humanity of white people who have all the resources. So we're in this bind together. We've got to help each other.
Sundiata, I don't know if you wrote that for what I said, but I didn't mean going away from the problem when I spoke about going into despair all the way. I meant like a momentary inner work, like a moment where I take with myself and really go, instead of just freezing into despair, really going into that state consciously. So then I get a different perspective and actually come back to the problem with this perspective, with a thought, with an idea that I didn't have before. So I agree with you. Exactly. No, exactly. I think what you're right is what you're saying is right on.
Well, I wasn't saying that what you're saying is wrong either, because that is important. We have to have compartments within ourselves, step out, come back. I was just talking about it really wasn't a dig at what you said, but it is something that I was thinking about, which is I wonder what it's like to be able to do that, you know, just on a larger note. And, you know, it's not this conversation, but for the people who have grown up and was able to live their lives and not worry and live in fear and stuff, I wonder what that's like. That's all.
I hear that.
So thank you, Lily. Thank you, Sundiata. We have now 4 hands up. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. Susie?
I'll be really quick.
Okay.
I was just thinking about that question that you asked about what can white people do? And somebody came and was talking about going into feeling in our bodies. And I think as well, what that can give us is the opportunity to really see and address how we as white people are colluding with white supremacy, and being really honest about that, and noticing when white supremacy comes in to shut us down and make us silent and not speak and all of that, we can actually notice how that's happening and then disrupt it. And I just wanted to say that that's an additional piece that can give us.
Thank you, Susie. Lots of inner work. Sai, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, following up on Susie's and Brookie's comments, I think that this idea of what we can do often tempts us to jump forward and do something. And you know, where do I put all of this energy as a white person? And I think what you've spoken to, Diane, as far as what has happened in Germany versus what has happened here, is that they have given a pause for history to catch up to the present and for us to integrate. And we just haven't done that here, and taking that pause to feel takes us back into presence instead of charging forward with the same energy of progress at any cost that has driven empire and colonialism And I think that's what we can do. And thanks for everyone here for being here.
Thank you, Sai. We can draw a damn line in the sand and say no more, but we don't acknowledge. We don't say it was wrong. And so we continue. That's why we're fighting now still. Alistair, I'm sorry. Thank you, Sai. I'm just moving us along so we can get to Alistair and then Lungiel.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real quick as well and kind of throw a span into the works and say, if like racism is a symptom of the culture, then let's not waste time trying to fix it. Let's just, the work is fixing the culture, because any sort of ism is just a symptom of that culture. So should the work not be focused on identifying what the culture is that produces that symptom? You know, just like a flu, right? It's just a symptom of maybe your body's weak, so, or inflammation. So if you target the inflammation, then the flu goes away. That's sort of the linear model that I'm working with when it comes to dealing with, you know, this particular symptom.
Thank you. Lun, could you pronounce your name for us? Is it Lun?
It's Lungile.
Lungile. Okay.
Yeah. It's a South African name. I won't be long. I'm here in South Africa. I was just going to add from what Jordana said in terms of what was when she said during the civil rights movement, and there was during the slides, and then there were like a couple of white people who have joined the Black American with those protests, with those marches. In South Africa as well, during the armed struggle and during the protest, we had, there were not too many, there were white people who joined the armed struggle. So what I was trying to say is that there were not a lot, but what I was trying to say, what we're fighting here is the system. Racism, the apartheid system we had here in South Africa that said to us, we were second-class citizens, that treated us, which made laws about segregation, just like as Zed said, the similarities with the Jim Crow in America. So that was the system. So as Jordana said, there were white people there. We also had white people here, but there were very few, as you know, as Jordana says, you know, maybe there were 2 or 3. Here we heard the likes of Jos Lobo, Albie Sachs, Dennis Goldberg, Ruth First. So the thing is what Jordana said, what was in them, those people were willing, they said they were willing to fight. They were willing to die to fight the system, you know, because they knew that the system was wrong. The apartheid system was wrong. And then they didn't take sides. They didn't say, you know, they didn't say left or right. They stood for justice. So I guess as Diane was saying, you know, let's all fight the system. Let's fight. Let's all, black, white, all races. We can all do it. Let's just fight against the system, and then we can all do it. Thank you.
Thank you. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. And so we don't have time to keep fighting and fighting amongst ourselves. We have to fight the damn system. And that is not that easy. I mean, it's not just that easy, as Sai said, just go out there and just start to fight something, because I've thought about this a lot, and I ask people about this a lot. How in the world do we ever even know what it is we want to have when all we've had for hundreds of years is white supremacy. Our systems are white supremacy. White supremacy is a global disease. So how do we create, what do we even think we want to create? It's not as simple as DEI. We're going to have around the table Black and brown and other faces. The systems, the way we think and the way we structure everything is white supremacy. How do we even create something else?
I want to, first of all, Diane, thank you for the power that you bring and the passion. And I do feel like we're kind of a little bit ending on a note of hope. I feel a little bit hopeful after Lungile share. And I would love to send out an inner work. And I don't know, I don't have a clear answer to that question that you just asked, Diane, about how are we going to bring it forward. But I know that I want to follow my body's symptom as a guiding force in the way that I interact. And so if you guys are interested in going a little deeper with that, I'm happy to email out an inner work about how to get more in touch with the power of your symptom. So you can just pop your email into the chat if you'd like me to send that to you, and I'll do that in the next couple of days.
And pop your email into the chat if you're interested in joining us. The Racial Justice Collaborative would love to have to extend an invitation to join us. So put your name in the chat. The process work. We want people to join. And but I also want to underscore what Amy just said. Amy, you're answering my question, because what I'm asking is about the intellect. I'm asking about our intellectual understanding and academic way we put things together. But you're saying the body knows what we need to do. Follow the body. Symptoms are a big explosion saying you need to do this, you need to do this. But even if it's not a big symptom, what is your body telling you? The body knows what we need to create.
Or the energy that we can start to bring.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I was just as listening to the intellect on this call today, and everybody who's here, but just specifically from people of European descent, I think that it would be interesting to see a collaboration of your thoughts together about some solutions and inner workings of what goes on in your communities to help fix it. Because it seems like as a collaborative, as a collective, there are some decent people on the line who are thinking and are not really with this nonsense that's going on. But they're not listening to me. I scare them, or they hate me, or whatever is their little thing. You guys, if you put your thoughts together and start to really get into some of the inner workings, because I think you understand yourselves better than I do, or better than anyone else. Maybe you could come up with some like a plan, or like I don't know. You understand what I'm saying?
A template or
something like that. Because we need people of right mind to represent that it exists. Because many of us who don't deal with you don't know that people like you exist. We think that everybody's out to get us. And you know what I mean? And which it seems like that sometimes. But it's good to know that there's some people out there who think different, trying to do something different. I think you need to come together though and collaborate those thoughts, because that would help. That's just a suggestion.
It's a great one. Thank you. Yeah. So if you want to email me and say, I'm a white person and I want to help, maybe we can get together in a separate meeting or a Google Doc and start dreaming together about how we can be a positive force in the public school systems and the institutions.
We'll have Georgiana to screen it, make sure it ain't no nonsense.
Right. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming and sharing so much today. I look forward to continuing.
Yes, I want to come in now and just thank everybody for your participation and the depth of what was shared today. Thank you to Diane Wong and to Amy Palatnik, who were our identified facilitators, and to Frank and Catherine, who were also extremely active, and to everyone joining in. I really hope you all can join us in a month, July 27. Diane and Jordana are going to continue this discussion, because right on, we have a lot of work to do, and coming together and deepening that is the only way forward. Thank you so much. The difference in the way the burden is carried in different bodies is a complete injustice, and I hope that together we will shift that.
I guess that's our goodbye. Yeah, I think we're saying goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
July 27th. You heard Jordana. She's
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you, Rhea. Thank you for coming. Thank everybody for coming.
Thanks
Thank
everyone
you.
for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.